everybody, it's Janae again from Woman Rising, and I got Quee back on with me tonight. You might remember her from last week if you saw our live video about sharing Mother's Day and just getting her input on that. So tonight we're going to actually be piggybacking on the topic I talked about earlier with communication. And I had mentioned in that live about how opposites attract. We are polar opposites in pretty much every aspect of personality. So I'm going to be asking her just a few questions to get her input on what it's been like, the work that we've had to put in to make this relationship work, the growth that has happened, and just how she's been feeling about the overall development of our relationship. So, how you feeling tonight?
I'm good.
You feeling good? Yeah, it's been a good day. It's kind of late. It's past our bedtime, really. But I wanted to let the other live sit up for a little while since it wasn't going to be up for 24 hours. So, starting off, did you feel like we were polar opposites when we met?
No? Not at all. I felt like, because we would say kindred spirits a lot, so yeah. I felt like we were almost exactly the same, with just some minor differences.
Yeah. So,
but I didn't know what I know now.
Do you feel like we're still kindred, even though?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Even though we're total polar opposites, definitely. I still feel a kindred spirit. I think it's just come back to the circle of things of us realizing that we have the same sort of dreams, goals, aspirations, and desires. We just have two totally different outlooks on how to get there, which, it just reminds me like math, like we tell the kids, there's usually more than one way to get to the same answer. But you can imagine if you working on that problem together with somebody and they want to take that
like
path
and
you want to take that path, it gives you some struggles.
Absolutely. So, I remember early into our dating, we looked up our compatibility of our sun signs.
So discouraging.
And it was very discouraging. Like, what were your thoughts? Did you think that we might as well call it quits, or did you think, it's just going to be a whole lot of work to make this work?
Yeah, that was what I thought. I never thought about we should call it quits with knowing that information. But even with knowing that, I think I thought that when we looked up our compatibility, like it's just going to take a lot of work. Mm-hmm. But I mentally was still not prepared for the amount of work that it was going to take to put into manage our relationship.
Yeah. So we looked up our sun signs, our moon signs, and then since we've been in our couples journal, our ascending or rising signs. So we've done some research on ourselves individually and then each other. Do you think that if we hadn't been that diligent in just finding out who we are chemically, we would have been able to get as far as we have?
No. That part was a part of the work. Like that was part of the necessary work because you don't know what you don't know. Right. And when you're trying to learn somebody who is not yourself, you gotta research. Even your significant other.
Do you feel like in the research that we did, you found out more about yourself as well? Mm-hmm. Or
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. It was like it was revealing, but not. Because it's like those things about yourself, but to find out that they were like just true mannerisms of your personality type, like the why.
Right.
Doing the research gave you the why. Like, why do I do that?
Right. It kind of ties into, okay, so now that I know this is how I am, this is how I respond to things, knowing who she is and how she responds to things, now I can see where that static comes in. Now I can see where those conflicts came in. It brought a lot, I think a lot for me, definitely. It revealed a lot to me how sensitive I really am, and that I think we both believe that I wasn't very sensitive, very stern, very reserved, didn't really show my emotions outwardly. But we didn't even realize that a lot of the things that I did and how I reacted to things that made me upset was just my version of responding in an emotional way that made sense to me. So it was just a lot to process, I think, for both of us, and it just brought some difficulty to the relationship because we didn't know really how to converse about it, or that it was even an issue necessarily. It just felt like I was mad, and I'd be mad for long periods of time. Like, how has that been? We've done even research on our love languages, and we've discussed that and have an understanding of that about each other, what each of us needs to fill our love tank. How have you been able to deal with that, with knowing, I can be brass, I can be really shut off when I'm upset, and can sometimes take longer to vocalize what it is that's actually bothering me?
Well, at first it was a struggle because I'm not like that. If it's a problem, let's talk it out right now. And you, not so much because you need that time away to get into a good space to even clear your head about whatever the topic is, the subject matter, the situation that occurred. So in the beginning, it definitely was a struggle. And it's been a work in progress. And I think now, like just recently this month, I've finally gotten to a place where if that's what it comes to, I'm able to handle however you're going to react. Even if I don't like it, I know how to respond better for who I am. And while I don't like arguments or friction at all in a relationship, I don't think anybody who truly loves somebody likes that part of that needing to happen in relationships. But I feel like it's taught me some things about myself as far as my capabilities and boundaries that I'm able to stay within, and knowing when to get up out of them and bring you up out of your deal. But yeah.
So we went to therapy. Was it last year? Mm-hmm. Early last year. Yeah. We went to therapy for a few sessions. Our job actually allows us to use therapists within their network, and they'll basically pay for it. You get up to 6 sessions for free. So that was a great way to tap into that and try it out. I wish we had gone to a few different therapists, but 6 sessions isn't a whole lot of time. And then we had to use the 6 sessions within the time frame that was given. And so just trying to build a relationship with multiple therapists in that short period of time wouldn't have really done us any good. But how did you feel overall about us going to therapy, and what did you take away from it?
I felt like it was helpful to get the conversation going, but I felt like for the most part, overall, I did feel like it was almost a waste of time, because I felt like we could have gotten to a space where we could have had those conversations ourselves, because that's how we felt when we left. We were like, okay, that was the groundwork to beginning to get on one accord. So now we don't really need therapy again. We know what we can do ourselves to stay the course and keep ourselves in good standing. But I don't know, like, it was cool. I liked it. I liked her a lot more than you liked her. But as far as the purpose of therapy, I felt like, just like we did our due diligence with researching each other, I felt like we could have did just a lot more work and coming to the table with mature minds and did what therapy did ourselves. But you know, that's just my feelings, because in reality, a lot of times couples need that mediator, and maybe that was the benefit of it, just having an outside party that was unbiased, neutral party, and able to give you know, professional views at that, from both points of view.
Yeah, and that was funny because that was like one of the first things that she said to us. You know, I'm not here to play referee necessarily. A lot of people come to therapy thinking that I'm going to take sides and tell the other partner, oh, well, you were wrong, and side with them. That's what they drag their partners to therapy for. So she gave us that precursor in our first session to let us know not to expect her to take sides and to really just be working with us objectively to learn how to communicate a lot better. And communication is the key. A lot of people talk about it, and they always stress it, but I don't think that people really know how to apply it. And that was one of the things that we talked about. We didn't really gain a whole lot from our sessions because these were things that we had already known. Like, we were coming to her, telling her what research we had already done. We had already been on therapy websites and started doing the groundwork of understanding who we are chemically, our personality types, our zodiac signs, all of those things, to find out the mechanics of who we are individually and how that plays a part in how we communicate with each other. Or miscommunicate with each other. We had already done that groundwork. So it was beneficial. There are a lot of couples, especially long-lasting, newer age couples, they'll tell you to go to therapy or that you should have a therapist that you talk to, even when things are going good. But I think if you just get on the same level of communication with each other, it's good to have a therapist to get that groundwork, because some things you don't know until you don't know, and somebody lets you know. The most beneficial exercise that I think I got out of those sessions was her having us, she was asking us questions and then we would answer, and then the other person would have to basically explain how they interpreted that message. And it was very eye-opening. And that's how miscommunication happens a lot. It happens in couples, it happens with friends, it happens with family. A lot of times you say what you mean and you understand what you're trying to say, but the other person does not interpret your message how you intended for them to receive it. And then a lot of times, if the person who's receiving it didn't ask for clarification or express that they didn't understand, or if the person giving the message doesn't make sure that the receiver understands and provides clarification, that's where the communication breaks down and the relationship breaks down. I had talked earlier about my relationship with my best friend. We fell out and we didn't talk for like 6 months after we fell out. And it was a simple miscommunication. I felt like what I said was clear and there was nothing to be misinterpreted, but she took it a completely different way. And I wasn't at a point of wanting to provide her with clarification either. So we went 6 months without talking for no reason. I knew that she was mad about something and I didn't care enough to follow up and find out what she was upset about. I just felt like I was still riding my wave. I said what I said. I meant what I said. It wasn't meant to be taken in any other context other than what I said. And I never followed up on how she was feeling about that. And we just did not talk. We went to a mutual friend's wedding. We didn't go together, but we saw each other there and we didn't even speak to each other. That had never happened, us being in the same room and not speaking to each other. And Babe and I have had that happen where I said something and I felt like there was no need to misinterpret what I said, but her feelings were still hurt behind it. And I'm just going along as if nothing was said that was wrong. I didn't need to follow up. I said what I said. There wasn't anything to misunderstand about it. And I would just allow her to be left misunderstanding what I meant and her feelings be unnecessarily hurt, and there be this unnecessary tension between us because I did not follow up with her and provide that clarification. And it's gone both ways. You know, there's been things where my feelings were hurt and I didn't communicate that to her. And so she's going along because according, to how she took it or how she gave the information, there would be no reason for me to be upset about it. But that didn't take away from me being upset about it. And her being a lot more intuitive, she would be a lot more quick to come back and follow up and to check and make sure that we were on the same page and that there wasn't any misinterpretation. And so that's why, a lot of us, we are attracted to our opposite. It's the yin and the yang. It's the positive and the negative energy, masculine and feminine energy. Mm-hmm. A lot of us naturally gravitate to somebody who is different than us, that gives off different energy than us. And the sooner you realize that is actually you beginning to make a dynamic duo and become that power couple that everybody is striving to be, and you learn that your differences are what actually makes you so much stronger. Mm-hmm. As a couple, you can flourish. And I feel like you feel the same way. It's taken a while to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Of feeling that way, but do you feel that way with us being definitely polar opposites?
Definitely, I tell you that all the time. Like, I think the struggle of not understanding each other is what caused the friction, and then coming into understanding each other is what brought light to the fact that it's not only okay that we're polar opposites, but it's actually the best thing for you and the best thing for I, because that's where your growth lies. Growth, we hear it all the time. It is success and growth, all of those great things, they lie outside of your comfort zone. So somebody who is totally different than you, totally opposite than you, they more than likely embody all of the things that you are uncomfortable with. Mm-hmm. And we both have tested each other's comfort levels. Definitely. And we have strive and broke through and come out greater on the other side of those things, and we continue to do so. Mm-hmm. So I think that in itself, for me anyway, is exhilarating. It's exciting. It's what makes you want to stay in something so beautiful. And it almost makes me go back to some of the research that I did on your personality type. I read a blog from an ISTJ talking about how they could not, like, they tried, they did their due diligence, they did therapy, and they could not get it with the ENFP for all of the reasons that we were having problems. And I was like, oh no, this is gonna be her. She's gonna eventually realize or see that maybe my personality type just doesn't mesh well with hers. But then whomever wrote the blog ended up stating that they got into a relationship and then ended up marrying their life partner, who was also an ISTJ, and they had broke down like some of the different mannerisms from their ex versus their new lover, and I was just like, that sounds boring. For real. Like, if you think about it, like we always say that get you a me if you think you just hot stuff, or you have all these great qualities, but you wouldn't date yourself. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe there's people out there that do, but like, you can just imagine having somebody around you. It doesn't have to be a lover, a friend, anybody that's just like you. That can be cool at first because y'all mesh well on your similarities, but over time it gets boring because it's like, you don't challenge me because we're almost exactly the same. Right. So it's funny thinking about that when I first met you, feeling like we were exactly the same. It's almost it makes me very grateful that we found out that we weren't the same, even though it was a struggle to have to get through to appreciate it. Yeah.
So we've been working super heavy on our communication. That's been something since we've been living together. Well, before we moved in together, communication was A1. We had all the right conversations, a super honeymoon, puppy love warm, fuzzy feeling phase.
Forever.
Oh my God.
Like anyway.
It was sickening. But we moved in together, and the dynamic of our relationship immediately changed. We became parents together. We were running a household together and discussing finances together. And we had only really known each other. It had almost been a year when we moved in together. But I think we both thought that we'd have a lot more time in the courting and dating portion of our relationship before we got to that point. So it forced us to have to communicate and learn how to communicate almost in a rushed manner. There were a lot of things that I think if we had had more time to kind of ease into them, or had more time to spend with each other, and more maybe spending the night situations or weekends, whatever, we might have learned a lot more about each other that we probably could have had softer conversations about, rather than blow up arguments about not realizing that was something that bothered one or the other. So how do you feel like about our communication progression over the past couple of years, from where we were to where we are now?
I think the progression has been good, coming from the struggles of everything. I don't really know if I have more to say than that, because I know my thoughts on like just going back, like honeymoon phase and all that good stuff, that can't last always. Like reality sets in, and you gotta focus on the now. And even though we were living in the moment, there were a lot more things for us to worry about in our realities outside of each other. Not that we were not thinking about those things, but when we were together before, it's like none of that mattered. And that was the bliss of our meeting. But knowing that we want to grow old together, I feel like we've done the necessary work to get in a good space to manage our relationship properly and our conversation and communication properly. And the progression of that is in a much better space than last year. So I'm excited about it. I'm happy for it, definitely. And just can't wait to see how it continues to grow and grow with everything that we have on our plates.
I agree. I think we've come a long way. It was discouraging at one point because I felt like we had covered all the bases. I felt like we had all of those necessary conversations before moving in together. Because we had done sleepovers, we had done weekends together. Road trips where all four of us, us and the girls, were together for extended periods of time. We went on like a 4-day vacation almost, or a trip to Columbus for a wedding. And it really was like just being a little family. We had to, band together and feed the kids and keep them on schedule because all of you guys were in the wedding together. So I felt very confident when we moved in together, but how quickly things spiraled, and things started to arise that we just had not talked about, and just how poorly I think we handled them to begin with. And I definitely take a major blame in that, because I just didn't understand it. Wasn't trying to understand it. I like my space. I had never been used to just people always being over the house. And I had been living, not with my parents for almost 9 years at that point, and I had never really had people over the house. I always just went out and met people, so it was a hard adjustment. And then just the length of time not talking, the tension arising, it just became very hard to deal with, and it got really discouraging. But I'm definitely, like, I think we had talked about that in one of our more recent disagreements, because the disagreements still come even when you get a better handle on the communication. That doesn't mean that you're going to agree on everything, but I know with every disagreement that we've had this year compared to where we were a year ago, a year and a half ago, they're much shorter, and we are much quicker to tackle the situation rather than combating each other on who's right and who's wrong. So we have our journals our couples journal now. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about writing it in every day?
Well, I'm not consistent. So, like,
that's your ENFP.
I'll write in it today for the last 3 days. But it's been good. It's helped our communication, I feel. It's opened our minds to questions that we haven't asked each other. And I'm talking about the fun things that they put in the journal, and, just necessary things that we should talk about. I love the journal. The journal, it just, not that we have a problem just having a regular conversation, but it makes the conversations, how do I want to say, just like more lively, because we might not have been thinking about having that specific conversation on that day. And like I said, I'm not as consistent with it, so I'll bring something up days later, but still, it'll be conversational pieces that I wasn't thinking about having until I read the question or the statement, whatever action I needed to take in my journal for that day. I love the journal, though.
I love it because I feel like even if you don't write in it every day, you still have to make up those days. And I think that especially couples, when they start raising a family and having, you got your career, if you're trying to, have other businesses on the side, a passion on the side, hobbies on the side, a lot of times we don't give any time to our relationship. And there'll be days on end where you may have talked to your partner, told them you love them, asked them how their day was going and all of that, but you didn't really tap into what was going on with them, mind, body, and spirit. And I think that the journal almost demands that you take some time every single day to commit to just you and your partner. That was something that we had to have a conversation about early in the year, when we were having a disagreement about the kids and parenting. And, my resolution was that we just get back to our relationship, because the kids are going to become adults. They're going to go off and have their own lives and have their own families, and then we're still going to be here. So if we put so much energy into arguing about how to raise them, what are we doing to actually develop our relationship, which is supposed to last far after they're gone? So having that journal really makes you work on what's most important. You work on self first, and then you work on your relationship with your partner next, so that you guys can actually build together, and everything else falls into place. And I feel like for the most part, everything has fallen back in place, because when we were first dating, even though we were dating, we weren't a couple. Even before we were a couple, when we were together, we were our focus. And I think that's probably as close to getting back to how it used to be as we can actually get, because so many things have happened. Things are a lot different now. When we were dating, your mom lived with you, so the kids would be with her, and we could be out and be like some lovesick teenagers. But now, we have the kids with us primarily, so it's not the same, going out in the middle of the night to the nature park and looking at the stars. Like, we can't do all of those things anymore. Going on dates and things like that. We're getting back to that point because Naira is getting to an age where we feel like we can start leaving her and her sister at home and she be in charge and they be okay, but we haven't gotten there just yet. So that's put a bit of a strain on our relationship. Wanting to go on dates and wanting to do things together, but not really wanting to utilize the options available for childcare. So it allows for that time that a lot of couples don't get, especially if they're raising a family, to just focus on them and their partner, because it's important. When you don't give enough energy to that, that's when people start feeling unloved. Depending on what kind of love languages they speak, they may feel like their love tank isn't being filled, and then that's how more miscommunication happens. Sometimes cheating, lying, and sometimes it's not even intentional, but a lot of times, like, I know, thinking about my parents and how my father ended up being with somebody else, or cheating on my mom and my mom cheating on my dad. There was a miscommunication between them. They both were feeling like they were lacking something in their love tank that made them even be susceptible to somebody else being able to come in and show them something that was appealing. My dad, I don't even know what his love languages are, but I'm pretty sure his top love language is words of affirmation. I'm almost certain of that. He didn't get that a whole lot growing up. It was always do what you're supposed to do. And my mom has never been one to really give compliments or be motivational. And so the women that he would mess with, you could see, like, I've seen the messages between him and those women, and that's all they were giving was just showers of praise and encouragement, and you're such a good dad, you're a good man, all of those things. So I think even before the physical part happened, what was most appealing to him was somebody tapping into his number one love language and just putting it in overflow. And for my mom, I don't know what her top love language is either, but I'm pretty sure that hers would probably be acts of service. Definitely. So enjoying somebody just being willing to do for her and take care of her was definitely very appealing. My father was more so somebody, if you tell him to do it, he'll get it done. But with people having acts of service as a top love language, they don't want to really have to tell you to do it. They almost want you to recognize that there's a need, or just be willing to, I know that you always do the dishes, I'm going to just do it for you tonight. That type of thing. So, a lot of people are just waiting around for their partner to tell them what it is that they want, but that's what goes into the work. You being so in tune with your partner, and knowing, maybe they do always cook dinner, or maybe they do always take care of this particular thing in the house, and you just picking up and just getting it done for them. That's an act of service. It's cool if they ask you and you just get it done. But it's like it's staged almost. Not even intentional, not to say that you wouldn't do it anyway on your own, but it almost takes away some of the value of tapping into that love language, because I had to ask you to do it, instead of you just recognizing that I've got a lot on my plate already. You're not doing anything at the moment. Let me just go ahead and take care of that for you. So, a lot of people are talking more about love languages. I see it all the time down my social media timeline. So it's great that people are tapping into it and starting to understand it. But, we've talked about that several times, even with us knowing who we are individually and how that ties into our relationship. No matter what amount of education you get about communication or knowing your partner, none of those things matter unless you're going to actually apply them. And, we've come back from arguments And that was, I know I've said it on a couple different occasions where we know what we need to do. We know what we should be doing to work on our communication. It just comes down to application. And, I know that there are things that I can learn from you. I know that there are things that you can learn from me. And even though they may not be of us, we know that if we were to put those things into practice, they would be of benefit to us individually and as a couple and for our family. So it's not just learning about it and understanding it, it's the application. So first communicate, get an understanding, educate yourself, and then apply it and consistently apply it. And be gracious with yourself and with your partner. Like I tell her all the time, I'm going to mess up. That's just what it is. It's not of me. It's very hard, but I'm willing to do the work. But I need you to understand that my progress is probably going to take a lot longer. Whereas the things that I need from her, they're a lot easier to come by because they're more logical. It's easier for an emotional person to put logic into a situation than it is a logical person like myself to put an emotional aspect into a situation, because we're just not primarily feelers. Like I call myself like a logical feeler, because I may start having an emotion about something and then I'm trying to analyze why I'm feeling that way, how I can change how I'm feeling about that particular situation. I have all these calculations going on in my mind. Meanwhile, she's sitting here waiting for an answer. When we have disagreements, I like to go off and process what's going on, and she wants to have the conversation right then and there. So I have to be conscious of that, and not leave her hanging on whatever it is that's bothering me. So it's been a lot of growth. It takes a lot of work. I think a lot of people don't realize how often they are attracted to somebody who is their opposite, and then when the relationship ends, they blame it on all of these other reasons why the relationship failed. But it's primarily because the communication piece broke down. Like I had talked about earlier, even with somebody cheating, and not to say that the person who got cheated on deserved it, but there was some piece in there of miscommunication. Somebody did not communicate what they needed, and instead of communicating what they needed, they opted to just be dishonest or cheat on their partner. So it takes both parties have to take some responsibility in it. There's nothing ever that excuses somebody cheating or being dishonest on any part of the relationship, but a lot of times there's statistics out that the primary reason that relationships and marriages fail is for finances. Well, how does that become an issue? It's an issue because somebody wasn't communicating about the finances, whether it be that they have poor money management, or they don't have money, or they're spending money that they don't have, or they have money and they're just keeping it to themselves. There was a breakdown of communication about the finances. That's what actually ended the relationship. The topic may have been about finances, but the actual issue that caused the relationship to fail was that somebody did not communicate, or they communicated and they did not make sure that the other person understood, or the person who was receiving it did not make sure that they understood the message that they were receiving. So, communication is so important, and especially with us being in a technological world where we have all this access to people, but we don't really talk to them and communicate with them. You have to damn near go old school when it comes to your relationship. You cannot leave it to text messages and lovey-dovey MCM and WCW posts every week. You can't leave it to those vices. This is real. And if you want it to remain real, you have to do real work. And be honest with yourself, be honest with your partner. I think that you can make almost any relationship work, unless it's a domestic situation. a domestic abuse situation or any kind of a abusive situation, you can damn near make any relationship work if you are willing to actually do the work and be honest. Because we've had to be honest even. We've had several conversations like, look, we can be grown about it. If we can't do this, then we just can't do it. And let's just call it for what it is. I'm gonna always love you. I'm gonna always want you in my life. But everybody's just not meant to be with everybody. Just because it feels good, it doesn't mean that we're supposed to be together. And if we can't recognize our differences and recognize them as strengths in the other person, then we just need to be honest with ourselves and not do this, especially for us, because it's not just us that it affects. We have kids together now. So that is a lot to make a decision about. But we owe that to them, to not drag them along or drag this along in something that we're not willing to work on every single day. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think has been your hardest thing with the communication piece? Because you're a talkative person. You don't mind getting your emotions out and expressing how you feel. What's been the hardest part about communicating with me?
The not communicating when you're mad. That's always the hardest part of it all. It's like, I rather scream and yell at each other in the midst of it all, even though I know that may not be the healthiest way, but I'd rather that than the silence. The silence kills me. You know, I've said that already before. The silence is the killer for me. But I've learned that, you know, it's your process, and I have to allow you that time to even have the conversation with me in a healthy fashion. So, while I said it was a struggle, and initially it is, but it comes down to me allowing you to be who you are. And like I said, you know, definitely up the ante a little bit in the situations where I see fit, when I feel like, you know, I've given you that time, whether you feel like it was enough time or not. We've got to talk about this now. So just kind of putting my foot down and kind of forcing the conversation after time has passed, instead of forcing it when ain't no time passed.
I don't know who she is. She done turned into a little miniature fire sign herself. Like she got to a whole no nonsense space with me. Like, look, you can be mad, but you only gonna be mad for this amount of time. And when I'm ready to talk about it, I gave you your time. So what's up? What we doing? Like, she's really become a lot more assertive about it, and I appreciate that, because really, even though I'm the boss, she'll tell you that I'm not, but I'm the boss. I don't like being bossed around, but I do. And I appreciate her assertiveness and that feeling of being wanted. It matters to her that we have this conversation. It matters to her that we come to a resolution about that, whatever the issue is. And that's important. Your partner should not just be leaving you mad, letting you stay mad for however long, and not coming back to check up, even if it's twice, because they know you and you know your partner. But you should never, you know, a lot of people, they say, oh, you shouldn't go to bed mad at each other. Sometimes it happens. Damn it. Sometimes it happens, and you need a couple of nights to sleep on it. Like she told me, like, I don't mind sleeping on the couch. I'll put myself on the couch. But she told me the last time we got into it and I slept on the couch, she's like, you sleep on this couch again, you will not be in a relationship. I was like, excuse me? So that's what I mean. Like, somebody who is telling you, look, we in this together. Either we're going to be in this together or we're not. Either you're going to work on this with me or you're not. Either we're going to tackle this problem together and not battle each other, or not. So I definitely appreciate her I don't know, she done laced up her bootstraps. It's very, very sexy. I love that. I love her confidence and her assertiveness, because honestly, like, and that's another one of those things where we talk about getting back to that honeymoon stage, who we were when we met each other. That's who she was when I met her. She was very assertive, very confident, very sure of herself, what she wanted, what she was and wasn't going to deal with, what she would just brush off and not allow to bother her. And so it's good to see her get back to that space, and that's why I'm thankful that we agreed to really focus more on our relationship and each other than everything else that's going on that affects us in our household, because that is how we're able to get as close as possible to where we were when we first started dating and courting. That's probably about as close as it'll ever get, really, because just the dynamic of the time that we spend together has changed. We have a lot more on our plate together now that demands a lot more time from us. So I'm thankful that you taking the lead and stuff, even though I'm the boss.
See, that's how we got it. We got it in other spaces. You can't be the boss.
I can't be the boss.
I let you think it.
I am the boss. That's why she let me think it. She know it. But I thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you.
Were we giving a shameless plug before we left?
We can definitely do that. We're gonna do that. Yeah, with the book. Yeah. So the couples journal that we were talking about is called Love Yours. You can find it on Amazon. It is by a married couple. I think they've been married. I think they said they've been married for like 7 or 8 years. If you are a spiritual being, if you are somebody, even if you're not, I'm not even gonna say that. There are pieces in here that talk about they are very spiritual themselves. So you'll see questions in there like, what is your ascending sign or rising sign? Even if you're not into astrology, you're not into the whole spiritual realm of beliefs. If you're, a devout Christian, whatever religion it is that you practice, or if you are an atheist, even this journal does not focus on any of those things. These are thought-provoking questions that allow you to tap into a whole nother realm of your partner that you probably didn't even think about asking. We've definitely discovered a lot about each other and ourselves with doing this. I was so excited when we got it. We actually got it around Valentine's Day, and we went all the way back to January 1st and filled it out because I was so excited to just get started. And it's brought up a lot of conversations that were necessary. I think it brought up a lot of conversations that we probably would have never had not having this book. A lot of feelings that each of us had that were brought up that we didn't even know about and probably would have never brought up. I'm not a very small talk, chatty person, and I've always been the type of person, if you don't ask me direct, I'm not just going to be forthcoming with information and just giving information. And I know that's been a struggle for her because she just wants to get to know me every day. And for me, I can't think of what to share most days because I don't really feel like there's a whole lot to me. But she tells me all the time, there's a lot of layers to you. You just don't realize it yet. So you can find this on Amazon. The book is called Love Yours. It's 365 days of Q&A with your partner. So there's sections inside. There's a upper section and a bottom section. We've just kept the course. She writes on the top. She's the head of the house, and I write on the bottom. And so you have a daily question that you need to answer, and they're dated. And then you answer the question. And for us, I don't think there's really been a post that we've had really that we didn't follow up with each other on or talk to each other about. I know there's been a lot of questions that we've been asked that we came back and I was like, babe, I didn't know you felt that way. Definitely. Yeah. It's brought on some conversations, unfortunately, a few arguments, disagreements. And all necessary. You know, we've had some disagreements and some arguments outside of the book. And like I said earlier, it feels good when we're having those disagreements. I still got to write in this book. I make a point to write in this book every day if I can. So even when we're mad at each other, this is still something that makes us accountable for putting in the work of the relationship, and to reflect, you know, like, you can see the times where things were so much better. So even if we're having a bout with each other, to be able to flip back and see those pages, and just feel that love. You can feel the love on the pages from that time when everything was blissful, everything was good, and it helps to come back down from being upset. I know for me, I can go days being mad at somebody, weeks, months, if you let me. So this helps me a lot to come down from that, and just it makes you want to get back to that better space so much quicker. So that's, yeah, the name of the authors are Ashley and Cortney Adams-Matthewis. But if you just type in Love Yours Couples Journal, you have to put Couples Journal because they actually have a singles a journal now for singles too. So even if you are single, definitely tap into that one. But the black one is for couples. They're both less than $20. And everybody can benefit from it. So it's supposed to follow you through the whole year. Even though we're halfway through May, you can start in May when you get it, or whenever you get it. And
they said they're working on some new stuff too, right?
Yeah, they're always working on
like journaling.
Yeah, so I think they're gonna actually have another one come out for next year. But you know, like I said, we got ours in February, so we went all the way back to January. It's May now, so that would be kind of long to go all the way back to January now. But
it's therapy in itself.
It definitely is. Everybody doesn't agree with therapy, and therapy is expensive. You know, a lot of people, that's what they recommend for couples that are married or going to be married to do therapy. It's expensive. That's what it comes down to. And then spending all that money to try and find somebody who matches with you. I'd rather have a mentor, and that's really why we're doing what we're doing. You know, like I said in our last